Hello, everybody. Larry here. Today, I want to talk about another question I've been thinking about. So, why are we afraid of change? Like, why, as a species, why are humans afraid of new things? Like, that's something I've thought about a lot, but it was something I was thinking about recently, and I thought, hey, this would be a good topic to make a video about. And it's weird because when you think about it, like, historically, a lot of times change or new things generally are good. Like it's good to evolve. It's good to always be, you know, thinking about new things that can be happening. But why regardless, like if you think about it, people are always just terrified of new things even when like logically there's no reason to be scared of it. Like why is it that regardless of how harmless it is or how really good it is for society, why are people still afraid? And I think what it comes down to is, for the most part, I mean, it's kind of hard to pin it down to one thing, but I think an easy thing to pin it down to is like a fear of the unknown. I think a lot of people have that fear. I mean, I have that fear. I'm sure a lot of you watching have that fear. I mean, I feel like most people at some point in their life have been afraid of something just because they don't know what's going to happen, or maybe you're afraid of doing something because you don't know what the results will be, or etc. It's the same idea, just a fear of the unknown. And when you think of it like that, it makes a lot more sense. Even though it's an irrational fear, it's still a fear, and it makes sense that even when in reality there's nothing to be afraid about, just the idea that something bad could happen, the potential is scary enough to make you scared of something new. And one of the most common things that you'll see of people being afraid of something new is you have like the classic debate of like you'll have an older generation and then a younger generation, and almost every single time the older generation will be like, oh, the kids these days, they don't get it, they're just not as good as when I was a kid. These kids, these these Gen Z's, these Gen Alphas, they're just not up to speed. And occasionally there is some merit to that. Like there is a big problem with kids these days being given access to the internet or getting handed tablets and phones instead of actually being parented, and that is a big issue. But it's not even just like this is Gen Z and Gen Alpha. Every single generation, like in the past few hundred years, there's always an older generation saying, oh, these newer generations are ruining everything, they're gonna doom our planet. And it's weird because it's like a continuous cycle. I remember I don't remember what video it was. Also, Rickety, get out of here. But a long time ago, I remember I watched a YouTube video that showed like a bunch of newspaper clippings from like the past like couple hundred years, that showed like just older generation complaining about the newer generation. It's like a continuous thing that always happens. It's happening today, and it's been happening for so long. It's just kind of interesting that it's this cycle. And I'm sure one day Gen Z and Gen Alpha are going to grow up, and we're going to be like, oh, these, whatever the new generation is, they're causing all the problems in the world. And it's interesting that people do that. I mean, I guess it's one of those things where it's like a scapegoat. Like when there's problems in the world, it's easy just to blame it on the new generation because that's like the newest thing that it's easy to be like, oh, it's their fault. Obviously, it's their fault. And also a lot of times these new generations are going to act differently just because they're exposed to they're exposed to new technologies that weren't there and new things that weren't there when their parents were children. So there's always going to be some level of like, oh, the kids, they don't get, back when I was a kid we did things differently. So that's always, I feel like, going to be the mindset, just for every single generation always, which is definitely interesting. But it does make sense now that when you think about it. But another example that I've thought about a lot is this one's a little more controversial, not as like set in stone as the one I just did. But there's a lot of people who are like super anti LGBTQIA plus. I think that's the full thing. I might be wrong. Someone can correct me in the comments. I'm sorry about that. But it's weird because it's like, why does it, like, there's people that are super against it. They're like, oh no, it's unnatural, it's not okay to change your genders. And it's like, but like, does it really, in the grand scheme of things, like, if somebody changes their gender, does that like impact the world either way? Like it's someone's decision. If they want to say they're a girl or a boy or whatever, like it's their decision to do that. Like why should we be ones to tell other people how they want to be called? And it's like doesn't hurt you. Like just because somebody wants to be a woman or wants to be a man, like that that doesn't like impact you personally. I don't get why that's like people are so against it. Like it's their decision to make, and it only really impacts their life. It doesn't really impact other people. So I don't get why people get so like fed up over it. It's such a weird thing. And it's like logically there's no reason why anyone should really care. Like I've always kind of had the perspective of like, listen man, I don't care, you know, what gender you are, what race you are, like I don't care man, like whatever, doesn't matter to me, never has, never will. I don't think anybody should really care. I think it should just be one of those things where it's like, okay, it's like you're this race, cool, whatever, don't really care. And I wish we could get to that point in our society, but we really just can't for some reason. And some people just refuse to accept a new way of thinking, even when it logically just makes more sense. It's like, why? There's just no logical reason to why we shouldn't let people change their genders if they want to. Like there are people that feel strongly that they're like, I feel like I want to be a trans woman or whatever. It's like, why should we tell them that they can't do that? It's like, I don't understand. And like, I remember hearing about, like at one point, I don't remember when this was, but I remember there was like the Florida governor, like they banned teaching LGBTQ, like just the idea of it in schools. And I'm like, why would you ban that? Like, why are we afraid of teaching something that's like, this is a part of our world. You can't just deny that it's there. It's, whether you like it or not, it's part of our society. And like, why can't we just learn to accept it for what it is instead of trying to be like afraid of it? Just because it's new doesn't mean it's bad. And it's like, why? It's really weird because I've never understood why people are so afraid of it. It's like, I understand there's some new things that are scary because it's like, oh, you know, this new thing could be bad, but I don't understand how some things like are clearly not bad, but people are still don't like it just because it's new, which is weird to me because it's like, especially for the example I just said of the, you know, the LGBTQ acceptance, right? And like homophobia and that the whole thing. Like, why is that even something that people care about? It's like, why? Like, I don't care. I couldn't care less. For the longest time of my life, I didn't actually know anybody that was part of the, you know, part of the LGBTQ at all. Like, I just didn't know anything about it. But even once I found out about it, like, I didn't have any strong feelings. I'm just like, oh, okay, that's kind of interesting, you know. But like, why would I have strong feelings about it? There's no reason to. It doesn't impact my life whether somebody else is part of LGBTQ or not. Like, if I have a friend and they tell me they're gay, I'm like, okay, you know, cool. I don't, you know, it doesn't, I'm not going to think less of somebody just because of what their, you know, what their pronouns are. Like, just, you know, just because somebody's hormones are different doesn't mean we should treat them differently, you know? Like, who cares? Genuinely, I don't understand. I think for a long time, they used to consider, like, being trans or being gay or being anything LGBTQ, like, they consider that a mental illness, which is crazy to me. Because by definition, like, what is a mental illness? A mental illness is when you have something going on your brain that, like, inhibits you from living a normal life. But, like, how is being gay inhibiting you from living a normal life? Like, if you're gay, you can live just like any other person. Like, why are we acting like that's a mental illness? Like, it doesn't even logically make sense. Like, I don't understand. And it's just sad to see that, you know, these, you know, people that are LGBTQ are just being treated terribly just because of such a silly, like, why would you care? But it really baffles me that people are so afraid of it, because it definitely stems from like a fear. Like, I feel like most of the time when people are, you know, when they don't like change or they don't like new things, it stems from like that fear of the unknown or like a fear of something that they're not experienced with. And it's weird that, like, why are we afraid of that? Like, I feel like something like that shouldn't be we should just learn to embrace it. But there's still always some amount of people that are going to fight against these changes and fight against these new ideas. And it's really weird. And I think about it all the time. Like, why are people like that? Why are they taught to be like that? And I think too, a problem is if you have parents that are like crazy homophobic, like they're like, anybody that's LGBTQ, I hate them. I hate all of them, right? And then they have a son or a daughter or whatever, right? They have a child. Then they're going to be teaching that child those ideals, and that child's going to grow up thinking that LGBTQ is like terrible, right? So then they're going to grow up thinking that, and they're going to be spreading that ideology. So I think the problem is these ideologies spread like wildfire. Like they're really easy. And then two, if there's ever a problem in the world, it's really easy to use as a scapegoat. Like, oh, let's just blame it on this group of people. You know, it's that whole idea of blaming a problem on like a certain minority or a group of people has been a thing forever in history. I mean, you can look at lots of examples. Obviously, you have like World War II. You know, that's kind of an outlandish example, but it's true, right? Like in Germany, they blamed the Jewish people for all their economic problems, and they got discriminated against. And that same thing, you can see that history repeating itself a lot. And that's one example. Obviously, I'm no historical genius. I'm not going to pretend like I'm a historian and I know everything about the world, but there's been lots of examples like that, and it is it's sad to see that history repeats itself in bad ways, continuously. And it always will. There's always going to be history repeating itself, and it's really inevitable more than anything. But it would be nice if we could shift in a direction where people are more accepting of new ideas and new things, because it's very frustrating. Because even though I'm a straight white male, I like to call myself the default character, because I'm like as basic as it gets. But even as someone that's not part of the LGBTQ community, I still get frustrated just thinking about the fact that people think it's like bad, and I'm not even in it. Like I couldn't even imagine how pissed I would be if I actually was. Like if I was gay and I had to deal with all these like homophobic people, that would piss me off so much. I can't even imagine what that's like. And it's just like why like what are we so afraid of? Like why are these new things something we should be afraid of? And that's one example I've been thinking about a lot, but there's a lot of examples of change being perceived as bad in history. I mean, you look at like for the longest time, women didn't even have the right to vote because people were so against the idea of giving them, because it's like, oh, this goes against our traditions. And it's like, why? Like it's crazy. Like just the pure like tradition and just like something that's been instated in society. It's so hard to like reverse that. It's so hard to change things because people get so used to their familiar traditions that they just don't want to change. It makes it really hard to change things when people there's so much pushback, And it's weird. Like I wish there wasn't that pushback, but there's always that group of people that's gonna blame their problems on a certain group, or is not gonna be accepting of a new idea or a new group of people that exists. And I just don't get it, man. I don't understand like that mindset, like how you could get into that mindset. Because I've always, like I said earlier, I've always been of the mindset that like I don't care, don't care about what your race is, what your religion is, what your pronouns are, whatever. I don't care. Like I'm cool with whatever. I mean, we all make mistakes. We all have flaws. I'm not saying I'm perfect, but I try to be, as accepting as people and understanding as people as possible, because I understand that we're all different, and, that's a good thing. And it's weird because you hear that a lot. You hear like, oh, we're all unique and that's okay. And you hear that, but then at the same time, you hear that and then you see people going like, oh yeah, but that's actually not okay. It's like, what? Why? Like, where's the logic? And I think too, I'm a very logical person. My brain works, and I pretty much everything in my life I try to solve with just logic. Like I'll think, okay, so this is step 1 and this is step 2, and that's how I think. And I think the problem is not everybody thinks like that. And so when I'm trying to solve problems with logic, not everybody's using logic. And that definitely, I think, hurts a lot too, because when people aren't critically thinking, they're acting on impulses, and acting on impulses is very dangerous, because if you're not thinking about your actions, you're going to do things that you're going to regret later. And I think that happens to a lot of people, is they just impulsively are scared of change, and they don't really think about like, oh, is this change really all that bad or all that good? They just think, oh, this is a change, so I need to be afraid of it, regardless of whether it's actually something they should be afraid of, Also, I don't really know how noticeable the shiny Shroomish is in this game. I'm pretty sure it's like it's red, but I don't know how red it is. So like, I don't know how noticeable it's going to be in game. So I'm just trying my best to zoom in on them. I think it'll be pretty noticeable, but I actually am not positive. So we'll see. But yeah, no, this is a topic I want to talk about today. I think I tackled it pretty good. I do want to hear your opinions in the comments. The first video, I want to let you guys know. So I kind of forgot I posted the first video, and I checked back like a week later and found out a bunch of people actually watched it, and I felt terrible because I didn't respond to their comments or look at their comments until like literally yesterday. So if you're here watching again and you watched the first video, I'll just let you know I'll respond to your comments a little faster this time, but I did see all of them, and I appreciate everyone who was there. I really didn't think it would get any traction, so I'm very grateful that some people saw it, and it sounded like some people, they were helped out by it. Like they saw the video and they said, you know what, this was super helpful, and that makes me happy. So I'm glad to see people got some value out of it. It's not just me here ranting for no reason, because part of this is me just ranting just to kind of vent my feelings out into the world, which is very helpful for myself. But the reason I'm recording it is so that maybe it can help somebody else out that stumbles into it via the great gods of the algorithm, and it seems like that seemed to happen. So I'm hoping this video stumbles into somebody too. And let me know your thoughts in the comments. Like, what do you guys think? Do you agree with me? Do you think that being afraid of new things is not healthy? Like, I want to hear some opinions in the comments. And like, it's one of those things, if you disagree with me, like, I'm totally okay with that. The only rules I have is, just try to be respectful in the comments. I'm trying to be honest and transparent here. So as long as you're respectful, I don't care if you disagree with me, man. I love having I love talking to people with different opinions than myself. I think that gives you great perspective on the world, and you'll learn a lot more talking to people you disagree with than you will talking to people you agree with. Because if you talk to people that you only agree with, you're just putting yourself in an echo chamber, and you're not going to give yourself those valuable different perspectives that you need. So I love talking to people that just completely disagree with me, and as long as you stays respectful, like, it's totally okay to like disagree with people. And I think nowadays, especially with politics being so polarizing in America, people are like, oh, you're either on one side or the other, and if you're not on my side, then I hate you. And it's like, whoa, calm down. It's okay to disagree. Maybe we agree on some things and disagree on others. It's not just black and white. There's shades of gray. It's not as simple as you're on one side or the other. There's more, oh, I agree with you on this, but I don't agree with you on that. And I think people forget that there's those shades of grays with, in between the black and white. It's not just one side or the other. It's like, oh, you're partially, I agree with these things, but I don't agree with these. And I think that's a lot of the reasons why people struggle to have, meaningful conversations, even with people they disagree with, because they don't realize that it's okay to disagree on some things and agree on others. Like, you don't have to pick one side or the other. You can kind of agree with certain parts of both sides, and you can reach your own conclusions by talking to each other. And I think that's the beauty of of human interaction, is that everyone's gonna have different opinions, and you don't need to conform to somebody else's opinions. You can form your own and kind of develop your own opinion based on what other people say and what you take that information you hear and you form your own response. Because you see this a lot online too, where maybe some celebrity gets into controversy, and you just see people instantly hopping on the hate train. It's like, I wish people would take a second, stop, and think about what they're saying before they just put these hate comments in. And it's like, those hate comments are never going to help people. They're just hurting people. And especially when you hear about people getting like death threats and stuff, like, that's terrible. Like, think about the impact of what you're doing. Just because you're anonymous online doesn't mean that your actions won't be accounted for. Like, I'm sure most of you have heard of the concept of like a digital footprint, but when you do something online, like, people will feel that. Like, there is an impact, and it can be traced back to you in most cases. So it's important to be careful with what you do online, because the thing that's different about online, in real life, if you say something, it's only said once. If it can't, it's not like it's recorded eternally. But online, if you say something, that's eternal. There's no deleting that, and you can try deleting it, but it's saved somewhere. you know? And it's what you say is eternal. So you have to be really careful with what you do. And some people don't, they think they're invincible. And it's like, you know, you fly too close to the sun and all of a sudden you're gonna burn up. So you have to be careful with what you do. So yeah, I think that's probably about all I have to say for this video. Let me know if you found it helpful. Again, I'll try to respond a little quicker than I did with the first video. I didn't do a great job. I just really didn't think anybody would watch it, so I did, you know, that's what I get for assuming, but I didn't check. So let me know in the comments. Again, if you have any other video ideas, if you want me to talk about a topic that, you know, one of you know, if somebody wants to request a topic, I would totally be down to take requests. Especially since the last video actually got some views. So if anyone wants me to tackle a certain topic, let me know and maybe I'll make a video on it. For the most part, I've just kind of been going on my own stream of consciousness, but I'm willing to, you know, try out some different topics as well based on what other people want to hear about. Because, you know, I'm partially doing this for myself, but I'm also doing this for, you know, to help out some other people, hopefully. So that would be great. Also, Shroomish, why? No. Why? Get out of my life. I want a red Shroomish. I don't want a green Shroomish. But yeah, hey, and maybe, just maybe we'll actually find a shiny during one of these videos. I mean, this is only the second video, so there's a lot more where that came from, but we'll see. I'm sure eventually it'll happen. I mean, statistically, you know, you'd think eventually something would happen. I mean, we're encountering loads of these little guys. Eventually we're going to run into one that sparkles, right? But yeah, let me know what you guys want to see, what you thought of this video. I definitely rambled a little off topic, more than I did last video, but you know, that's just how I am. You know, I'm like I said, I'm literally going off my stream of consciousness. So we're kind of just going wherever it takes me. So hopefully you were able to make some coherent sense about what I was saying today and, you know, got some value out of it. But let me know in the comments below. And yeah, I'll see you guys in the next video whenever I make that. I'll make sure to respond to comments this time. But anyways, I hope you guys all have a great morning, afternoon, night, whatever time of day it is. Have a good one. See you guys later. Bye.